If you like what I do, consider joining my channel or donating to my coffee. Links in the description. Raider Kid in the Ruby Chest, a humble, unassuming little game that was not only not on my radar, it wasn't even in my radar's zip code. I had no idea this Game Boy Color throwback Metroidvania even existed, so when it finally popped up on my feed, I was more than a little intrigued. I love me a good Metroidvania, and this one had an undeniable charm. The trailer and screenshots made it look quirky, funny, and, most importantly, legit. Not just a proper MV, but a proper 90s MV. So what choice did I have but to boot it up? My hands were tied. But what's this game about? You play as Alex, a rambunctious child who gets bored on a family vacation and decides to go find some adventure. And sure enough, adventure finds them, in the form of a long drop into an ancient ruins full of living rock monsters and an ominous ruby chest begging to be opened. Surely this will end well for our little explorer. Surely. Is Raider Kid in the Ruby Chest a treasure worth opening, or just another box full of junk?
Combat.
Raider Kid's combat is simplistic, which of course is not a dirty word on my channel. Matter of fact, much of Raider Kid's charm comes from its unabashed simplicity. Alex can whip, hammer, and chuck spears at monsters. That's it. No blocking, no parrying, no Estus Flask healing, no dodging with iframes, and no regrets. Raider Kid isn't going to bust your chops with tough combat. The entire game harkens back to much simpler times. Enemies and bosses are designed to perfectly complement Alex's limited kit, and I personally appreciated the slower paced combat that focuses on positioning over mechanics. It's surprisingly refreshing in a genre that often overcomplicates itself. When it comes to actually hitting things, there are a couple of nuances worth mentioning. The whip is your main attack. It has nice reach and costs nothing to use. The hammer is much slower and requires charge time, but it removes shields and is the only way to crack open enemies with hard shells. Spears, meanwhile, can be thrown to hit distant enemies, but you have a limited amount that must be replenished, either through enemy drops or from inside pots. Relying on drops to use a weapon is never my favorite, especially when you need spears to overcome puzzles, but the devs always put pots nearby for convenient refills. When it comes to bosses, you got quite a few to contend with. Impressive for a game with such a short runtime. And each boss is fun to take down. None are overly difficult, and many come with a puzzle element you have to solve in order to do damage. Boss encounters are quaint, but charmingly so. Their difficulty, design, and predictable patterns felt nostalgic and comforting. That may not be the best way to describe boss fights for some, but for me, it hit exactly the nostalgic sweet spot I didn't know I was craving. And that's it for combat. Raider Kid's combat may be simple, but it's thoughtfully built around that simplicity. The limited moveset, the light resource management, and the puzzle-tinged boss encounters all work together to create a more deliberate style of fighting that rewards positioning and patience over mechanics that require hardcore skill. It's charming, nostalgic, and refreshingly straightforward, proof that a well-designed, tightly focused combat system can still hit the spot without needing a dozen buttons or a skill tree the size of a CVS receipt.
Abilities. Platforming.
Raider Kid won't knock your socks off with its repertoire of abilities. The only thing that might surprise you is that Alex never gets a double jump. But the rest of his kit is pretty familiar stuff. Breathing underwater, swimming, wall jumping, climbing on environmental objects, using tools to hit switches. Nothing unusual here, and definitely nothing that makes traversal feel unique like Ori's Bash or Somber Echo's Ether Lantern. Instead, Raider Kid leans on tried and true abilities to move you through its world, and for what it's worth, it does a great job. Alex feels great to control with responsive jumps and intuitive aerial movement. His attack animation is a bit stiff, and sometimes the input priority makes you swing the wrong way, but it's not a big issue. What really sells the movement is how the world is built around it. Even with such a standard kit, each new ability feels meaningful because of how much it opens the map. Getting the wall jump, for example, turns the world into a playground and makes you feel unstoppable, exactly how a late game upgrade should feel in a Metroidvania. And the fact that a simple, everyday move like the wall jump can feel that transformative is pretty impressive. The moment-to-moment platforming feels pretty good too. Jumping between platforms and dodging enemies are your main obstacles, but there's a healthy number of traps to avoid, and the gimmicks are inventive and a whole lot of fun. You'll flip platforms and walls with switches, flood an entire biome to reach new areas, and eventually tackle a late-game gimmick so big, I refuse to spoil it here. All of these mechanics come with a light puzzle element, so expect to retrace your steps as you piece together what each switch or gimmick actually does. It's a simple system, but the way it recontextualizes familiar spaces keeps platforming and exploration engaging from start to finish. And that's it for this section. Despite its modest toolkit, Raider Kid makes every ability count. The movement feels great, and the world is cleverly built around your growing skill set. Add in a handful of fun biome gimmicks and light puzzle elements that constantly recontextualize familiar spaces, and you get a traversal system that's far more engaging than its simplicity suggests. It's nothing super flashy, but it's smart, satisfying, and consistently enjoyable.
Progression.
This is going to be a light section because Microvanias famously keep RPG elements to a minimum. These games thrive on momentum, not menus, and Raider Kid is no exception. As a true Metroid-like, the only things Alex can upgrade are his HP, spear capacity, and charge time, usually by finding ancient donuts and ancient broccoli. Though, I'd imagine eating anything with ancient in the title would be a bad idea, but I'm a guru, not a doctor, so what do I know? Raider Kid doesn't have shops or currency, but it does have a single side quest tied to the game's true ending, which is pretty wild for a Microvania. More on that in the next section. And that's going to do it for progression. Raider Kid keeps things simple and old school, tying your power growth entirely to your curiosity and exploration, not to XP bars or stat spreadsheets.
Exploration.
Typically, Microvanias take a hit in exploration to maintain momentum. Objectives are clearly marked, routes stay fairly linear, and the whole experience is built to keep you moving. Raider Kid shirks those conventions and does its own thing, and it's surprisingly effective. The game never tells you where to go, and around the mid-game, it sheds its linearity entirely, turning into a scavenger hunt that asks you to backtrack and track down specific items to progress. It sounds antithetical to the Microvania philosophy, but it works thanks to the game's tight, compact world design. Shortcuts are everywhere, secrets hide in plain sight, and traversal upgrades constantly recontextualize old areas. Retracing your steps rarely feels like retreading ground because you're almost always moving through familiar spaces in faster, more interesting ways. Now, let's talk about that side quest I mentioned earlier. No spoilers, of course. There's a scavenger hunt you must complete to finish the game, and there's a whole second scavenger hunt you can tackle if you want the true ending. That's right, 2 scavenger hunts in a Microvania. It sounds odd, but the devs make it work thanks to 2 design choices. The first is the tight world design I already talked about. The second is a tool Raider Kid gives you to help you 100% the game, and it's the most unique approach I've ever seen in a Metroidvania. When a game requires you to find hidden objects, it's inevitable you'll miss things, and scouring the entire map for missed crap is always exhausting and time-consuming. And last I checked, time-consuming is the opposite of maintaining momentum. Raider Kid solves this with the Dowsing Crystal, an item you dangle over your in-game map to locate anything you've missed. It's ridiculously fun to use. You just open the map, move the crystal around, and wait for it to start swaying like crazy. Its form and function working in perfect harmony. A stylish tool that's also incredibly practical. There's even a form of fast travel you can unlock to speed up the hunt. Believe me, this game is built to be a blast and to respect your time, which is absolutely crucial for a Microvania. The fact that Raider Kid manages to stay fast, fun, and momentum-driven while juggling multiple scavenger hunts is genuinely impressive. And the map itself looks great. It's very detailed, and biomes are color-coded. You can't place down custom markers, but the dowsing crystal makes up for that. That's it for exploration. Raider Kid's exploration is far more ambitious than its Microvania label suggests. By ditching strict linearity, embracing scavenger hunt progression, and supporting it all with tight world design, clever shortcuts, and the brilliantly fun dowsing crystal, the game turns backtracking into a genuine pleasure instead of a chore. With fast travel to keep things snappy and a world that constantly recontextualizes itself as you gain new abilities, Raider Kid manages to stay fast, focused, and momentum-driven while pulling off exploration ideas most Microvanias wouldn't dare attempt.
Atmosphere, narrative.
Raider Kid's atmosphere lays the nostalgia on thick. The whole game is literally framed like a Game Boy Color screen, and you can even find sticker packs to slap onto the console. The pixel art screams, "I'm in the back seat while my parents drive us to Myrtle Beach again," and the chiptune soundtrack seals the deal. Nothing here blew me away individually, but together, it absolutely nails that classic handheld vibe. The game also has a wonderfully goofy sense of humor. It's packed with puns and silly wordplay, including one in-game gag so punderfully stupid, I refuse to spoil it. Just trust me, it's wordplay genius, and that's coming from the cringiest punmeister on YouTube. The narrative is charming in an early 90s kind of way. You're a kid who's sick of hearing their tour guide yap about rocks, wanders off, and immediately stumbles onto a talking chest that is so obviously the villain that even Toph would see this betrayal coming. The cutscenes highlighting how negligible Alex's parents are only add to the charm. The game's entire narrative feel is funny, cute, and feels exactly like something I would have played back in the late 1900s. And that's it for this section. Raider Kid blends thick, cozy nostalgia with a goofy sense of humor and a delightfully simple early 90s storyline. The Game Boy framing, chiptunes, and sticker-covered console give it a familiar warmth, while the puns, playful writing, and predictable storyline keep things light and fun. The whole experience feels effortlessly charming.
Final thoughts and score.
Raider Kid and the Ruby Chest is a tiny adventure with a huge amount of heart. Its combat is simple but thoughtfully crafted, its abilities are familiar yet elevated by smart world design, and its exploration is far more ambitious than you'd expect from a Microvania. Between the clever scavenger hunt structure, the brilliantly fun dowsing crystal, and a world full of shortcuts and recontextualized routes, the game keeps its momentum without ever feeling thin. Wrap all that in thick Game Boy nostalgia, goofy humor, and a charming early 90s storyline, and you've got a bite-sized Metroid-like that punches well above its weight. I award Raider Kid and the Ruby Chest a 9.5 out of 10. Raider Kid and the Ruby Chest is available on PC. I played the game exclusively on the Steam Deck with 0 issues, and therefore give it a Steam Deck rating of verified.
Pair placement.
Raider Kid and the Ruby Chest is one of the strongest Microvanias I've played in a long time. It embraces the genre's core philosophy, fast, focused, momentum-driven gameplay, and executes it with a level of confidence most bite-sized Metroid-likes never reach. The combat is simple but deliberate, the exploration is shockingly ambitious thanks to its tight world design and clever scavenger hunt structure, and the whole experience is wrapped in thick, cozy Game Boy nostalgia. The only real sticking point some players might have is the short runtime. At around 3 hours, Raider Kid is over before you know it. But that brevity is part of its charm and the game's vision. Raider Kid respects your time, delivers exactly what it sets out to do, and never overstays its welcome. Raider Kid and the Ruby Chest plunders the A tier. Honestly, I thought I'd never put a Microvania in the A tier because of how linear and hyper-focused their exploration tends to be. But Raider Kid is a standout Microvania that proves small games can still hit incredibly hard when every piece is crafted with care. And that's no joke, because I would never kid.